Doing good, doing good. Awesome to catch up with you. Marco, how are you,
Hi
friend?
guys. Hi, good. You?
Very good, very good, very good. So, guys, we're gonna get started. Today's operator meetup, hosted by our good friend Ken, and luckily we have people like Marco and Mike as part of the conversation today, who have a lot of experience behind the machine and getting success. The real conversation today, guys, is talking about tips and tricks when it comes to packaging. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about operator tips and tricks around the packaging with our hostess with the mostest, Mr. Ken Huizenga. How you doing today, Ken?
Great, Kevin. How are you? Great to see you. Well, I'd say it's great to see Marco, but it's a good thing we saw his picture early on because
Marco's always traveling. He's always called us from a car or a customer site. He's a busy dude.
we're lucky to have him for sure. Hi,
Yeah, thank
Marco
you.
and Mike. Good to meet
Hi.
you.
Hi.
So Ken, let's talk a
Hi.
little bit about packaging. When you were running your I guess your print shop, you had a B2 inkjet press. You had an A3 inkjet embellishment machine. You had a 20-inch or a 40-inch offset press that you were running, a 20-inch, right?
Yeah, half size.
Half size offset. Did you guys run a lot of packaging? Is it something that you guys were steeped into? Is it something that you guys were starting to look at as a growth opportunity? Tell us kind of like your experience, because you've been in printing for what, 30 years, so you must have run across a box or two.
Yeah,
Tell us.
we did. It wasn't initially, that's not why we bought the machine. We thought we could get there, but we weren't sure. But what it ended up happening, I think, that led us to most of the packaging work that we did was, and I suggest this for operators to go ahead and tell their bosses about, but a big business for us was prototyping.
Yeah.
Like you think about companies that decide to go to market with a product and they think they know what they want, and they think they know how it'll look on the shelf. Being able with an inkjet press or even a toner machine to be able to embellish a couple different options and a couple different designs. And as an operator, I could then talk about this feature's good, this one's not. Let's get the foil away from the corners. Um, that led to a lot of business because we could efficiently bid it, right? I mean, we got our problems out of the way early. So companies were really happy to have a full box that they folded up and put right there, and they would have their company meetings and run them around the table and actually hold, feel, touch. They could add, subtract. This was, if you think about it, let's just say you spend $1,000 on one prototype.
Right.
I mean, imagine what that saves in the long run if it didn't fit on the shelf, or you couldn't get 24 of them in a box to ship to a vendor, or you couldn't. It was the wrong type of stock. You put the product in, it was just too flimsy on 10 or 12 point board stock. So we ended up starting in prototyping, and then it ended up becoming more of a marketable product. We would go to people and say, we know your dental stuff is not that glamorous, and you might pop it in somebody's mouth, but usually you leave and you get that stuff in your little plastic container, and it's like I paid 4 grand for this, but I'm telling you, plastic container into a carton, and it's got a little bit of gold foil, and it says especially for, or they're able to fill anything out. Leave that customer's leaving with a little less butthurt and a little more value added to their product. So that's where it went after that.
I love it. I think that's one of the things that we've seen, and welcome Eric. We welcome you to this conversation, my friend. A lot of what we've seen too is obviously, yeah, I think that the size of the machine dictates, first off, whether you're going to be kind of playing in that prototyping side of the market or you're going to be doing in the high production. So our friend Matt Redbear is running an Evo 75. He's running, I believe, B1 sheets all day long, and a ton of it in the cannabis industry for packaging, for example.
Right.
That's
And
all.
that's small. That's all small stuff. So
It's small stuff, but it's big sheets. So they are finding a good market for that, and he's had to kind of relearn and redevelop a whole new way of designing things for packaging so that it holds up in the supply chain, so that it holds up on the shelf, in the boxes, all these things. And we kind of covered a little bit of that in embellishment. But I think one of the fundamental questions that I get all the time is regarding scalability of digital embellishments. And let me tell you what I mean. And this came up, I think I was giving a talk at Print UV, and there was somebody there from, I think it was Curtis Packaging, who was talking. And the big question was, the stuff that I can do on digital embellishment is bananas. The looks, the feels, the foils on top of foils with the varnish textures and the goop and the refractions and the metallic laminate, there's all these different things that I can do, and customers go crazy for it. But if I onboard a customer who just say launched a energy drink, and I'm doing their 6-pack holders for a craft energy drink or whatever, and they blow up and we're going from $5,000 a week to 100,000, 500,000 bucks a week, it's not necessarily a look I can recreate on analog technology. And
But I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
no, go ahead. And so that's really a big question.
I think
Did you run into that?
obviously if you're prototyping, you can run a smaller version of the box.
Right.
And we ran into this, but let me back up just a second. You mentioned about the half size machine and because 3DS was 14
By
14 and an eighth by 40 and a half. What we ended up doing for a lot of the cartons that we couldn't necessarily reproduce size wise is we just did a wrap. So what we did, you take an 8.5 by 11 box, but you take a sheet that's super long and skinny, and then you create awesome. I mean, you had an Apple product, I'm sure, that slides into a sleeve. So I don't limit yourself as to what you can do digitally because you think the size is an issue. There are ways around it. To be honest with you, we did run into that a couple of times where we got people going because we had that digital inkjet, and we would print a 6-up box, we would convert them, and suddenly they're like, okay, great, now we want 40,000. Right. So we were like, oh, we knew this day was coming, but did it have to come this quick?
Right.
But then what's good about that as a printer and as an operator is you can then send those designs and those files to a partner, right? Somebody that you do business with, somebody in a commercial industry that maybe you do some digital stuff for, and they're really, they're high on a conventional side and they can run the much bigger sheets of stuff.
That's good. I like that.
So, you can then pick your partner. As an operator, they would get that job and they wouldn't understand a lot of things of how to do. What about this foil? How'd you get this look? Or why is it like this? And they're coming to you then for that advice, and you become the guy to help a product grow. And it all started with you because you were part of the design. So
I love it.
An operator has a key part in that.
They are, and I think operators having that intake or being part of that conversation when it comes to designing from step one is one of the ways you can overcome a lot of these challenges. So, I've been talking to a lot of people in embellishment, preparing for this week, for this month, for embellishment week or packaging month for the Jet Force. What I've come across is that a lot of people, like, if they want to get this right, is they have an honest conversation with the customer up front. Like, look, guys, we're using this type of technology. This is what it looks like today. As soon as you get to this many boxes or volume, we're going to have to go to a different machine to make sense. And it's going to look more or less like this. This is what you have to. So setting the expectations from day one, understanding with the customer that if he grows, eventually there'll be a point where they're going to have to go to a different process that is adequate for their runs lengths is one thing. And then number two, and I never thought of this, and Matt put this in my head. He goes, yeah, or you just design the original design in such a way that it's easily reproducible on a BOPS or a screen printing press or an analog machine, where it's something that maybe you don't put in, the kitchen sink on the first design. You keep it simple, relatively simple, and relatively unnoticeable if you were to go from a digital to an analog system. So design it simple.
Maybe you don't, though. Maybe you call a Matt or all these people that we talk to on a Jet Force or these operators, and you be, hey, dude, you want to look like a hero to your boss? They need 30,000 of these boxes,
right?
And you've got a wider format machine. You want this job? I'll be happy to help you get these files straight, and I'll introduce you to the customer. Let's form a partnership, and maybe their machine's so busy you start getting some half-size jobs because you can't fit them in. I mean, what a problem to have, right? This forum and this group is a handy group to have because we can all help each other out with that kind of stuff. So
yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about technical. Like, when you're running packaging, is there anything that you were trying to keep in your mind when you're running those presses that is maybe different than a traditional commercial job? Is there any difference whatsoever on whether it's file preparation or height of the microns or the type of dines or the type of laminates that you would use? Like, what are some of the things that you would recommend people getting into packaging, maybe for the first time with digital embellishment, really pay attention to?
Think we got to start with the beginning. So you're gonna likely in many packaging instances get a job from a bigger press. It's gonna be multiple up. You're gonna cut a sheet in half or in quarters. I think with the jet varnish, everybody knows you're within a half a mil of the heads, and you have to be really super careful with your board stocks. There's not a lot of room, not a lot of room for error. So if you can order your board stocks in this size sheet, pre-wrapped at the mill, and think about that when you're going to go to press, because it automatically keeps that paper at 50% humidity and nice and flat.
Yeah.
And then once the press has produced the job, try and get them into a cool environment as fast as you can. Hold on, let me get rid of my sun here. It's coming. Sun's just coming up in Arizona. Um, the so you want to keep you want to keep it in a cool environment, and then not cut those sheets, those halves or those quarters until just before you need them on the jet varnish, because every edge you open up starts to change. Paper's alive. It's got active water content, so you don't want to break the edges on any of those cuts until you're ready. And I mean to the point that cut yourself 500 sheets, and when you're ready for your next 500, have your cutter operator set you a program so you can go and quarter that sheet and then put them right into the jet varnish. You want to keep them flat and not give them any time to morph. Then you can obviously, if you can't keep it in a humid environment and you do get a little bit of curl, I had a nice little trick of going to my shipping department and grabbing some banding.
Yeah.
And making myself some L or some curve shaped bands that kind of come around into the belt, infeed belt, and try and present that sheet as flat as possible to the vacuum belt so it holds it nice and flat to get under the heads. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the corners are still tight, but another secret for that is if the job has tight, then make yourself another program real quick, do another scan, but do it after you've cut a 16th of an inch off of all four sides, because sometimes that forces that sheet to relax, and then you can get it underneath the heads.
No kidding. Wow, that's smart. That's good.
But you also asked about file prep. I mean, that's a whole nother issue. Obviously, you're going to have a box that you're going to score or a carton, and you're going to need to bend around corners. You're going to need them to not crack. You're going to need them to, you don't want to bring elements too far over that edge, and you definitely don't want to bring foil over that edge. That gets into our early conversation about really thinking about the design and fine tuning it to avoid problems down the road. So if you can taper that varnish down, you can put a little varnish there. The varnish tends to be forgiving.
Right.
Go ahead and let the varnish come down in height, but then try and keep the foil away if at all possible. Most of the cartons, if you leave a half a point break in the foil around the score where it's going to be scored, you won't notice it really when the box is done. You're going to present the front, right? In the front, the varnish is going to go right to the edge and it's going to stop. I mean, if somebody's going to pick up a box and they're going to turn it, yeah, there's some digital limitations to that. You're not going to have a perfect 2-point foil band all the way around it, but I don't think anybody's buying the sides or back corners of a box. So just keep that in mind.
So one question for you I think is interesting too is that I think you look at packaging, it's destined to be, I think, in a truck, in boxes, getting shipped around the country, getting shipped around the world. A lot of scratching or a lot of boxes, hitting each other, much more than what you would typically see on, I would say, most commercial products, right? This stuff is destined for distribution. You and I have had conversations in the past, really interesting conversations about some of the tips and tricks that you had, and maybe it has to do with just how this technology works, and it has to do with where you live, specifically in Arizona, where I think it hits thermonuclear hot in the summer, where you're like in the 300-400 degree range. What are some of the tips and tricks on the shipping aspect to stop that varnish maybe from blocking or from mattifying sometimes or anything like that? What did you find works for you?
Well, fortunately, the job had other steps after the jet varnish or any of the digital embellishment. So you had a little bit of time before it actually got into the shipping stream. I mean, obviously, you're going to want to take those sheets because they get a little thick, turn them on their side as they're drying. You know,
Right.
we've made racks where we actually store the sheets on their side instead of flat. It takes some of the weight off of them. And keep in mind too that that varnish is still a little bit alive. You're curing the top, but you're not curing 200 microns all the way to the core. So you want to give it plenty of time to off gas and to continue the curing process. And when you hand it over to, um, let's just say die cutting, I mean, you're going to get hopefully another day there because that process is going to take some time.
For sure.
You're going to end up in a converting machine. So you're going to have a little bit of time on that. So that actually bodes itself well to protecting the product. And then, when if they wanted these cartons assembled, we would not ship them in very heavy boxes. Sometimes, the companies would get, why did you ship it in 15 4-inch tall boxes? Well, we wanted to protect your product. The real reason was we didn't want it to get into a UPS truck, have it be 130 degrees, and end up with a big block when it got there. So that's all time, right? 4 days in the shipping process, 3 days in bindery. That's 7 days. Things are pretty solid and pretty dependable as far as scratch resistance. If you can coat, you should coat over it. You can put it through the jet varnish a second time if it's a small run. It takes minutes to put a little bit of varnish over the foil.
Yeah.
And you keep that in mind in your design too, right? You're going to put some varnish down, you're going to pressure foil on.
So
Maybe
that's
don't put 60 microns under the foil. Maybe put 30 microns under the foil it, and then put another 30 microns on top because now you've built in an extra layer of protection. So
and it looks cooler.
scuff resistance.
And
Yeah, and you've got your touchable, tangible product, right? You're tactful now, right?
I love it. And actually, I personally feel, I don't know what Marco and Mike, if they have anything to say on this, or obviously we have Eric here who's now becoming a rapid specialist in embellishments. But having that exact look and feel of having the varnish foil and varnish on top is a brilliant way to get really cool looking. I think it looks better than regular just foil on top, as well as protecting that foil so it doesn't scratch off. Mike, Marco, is that stuff that you guys have done in the past before?
I
Yeah.
didn't.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Marcos.
I didn't do it for, let's say, our biggest showroom event boxes that I did. What I spoke when we were on the designer
Right.
meetup, but it gives another dimension to the foil. Definitely, because of that thickness of the varnish, you have another angle of this light that goes in, so it's completely can change completely the effect how you look at it. And as Ken said, it will cover the foil and make it almost scratch resistance regarding the foil quality and everything. Because the foil, the shininess of the foil with the scrubbing will be maybe altered, but with this you will get it much better if you
Yeah.
have the time for that second pass or
Yeah, if you have the time, for sure.
yeah.
And the budget.
Time is the budget because, as he said, put 30, and then on top again 30, you are on a 60, or
Yeah.
you can do it directly on a 60. So you are still on a 60 microns and the same amount of foil, but the time of the printing is another perspective for the budget. Yeah.
And everybody's got the budget if it avoids grief and down the line. I mean, you want
But
the customer's product to be super durable, so it's hard to not cost justify an extra pass, especially on a small run.
yeah, but when we talk about the time consuming, you need to know that the machine is slower on a 60 microns than on a 30 microns. So it's not that twice, be 30, maybe 30% more of the time, not 100% more of the time,
What a
because
great piece of advice, Marco. I didn't even think about it like that.
yeah,
That
because
justifies it for sure.
yeah, because on 30 microns or 29 on a small machines, it's basically 0. I think 28 meters per second, and on a 60 microns I think you are 114 or something. So basically the preparation, as I said, maybe 20% more time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point, actually. Mike, you had something that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, so in our neck of the woods, sometimes some of our customers find the foil quite too shiny. So as part of protecting the foil as well, instead of just applying glossy varnish, we apply texture
Oh yeah.
on the foil. Yeah, and it's a competitive advantage because of our AIS. Not many printers can do that. In an economical way. So now it becomes an additional value add, and a different type of aesthetics where
Right.
we can blend the gloss and the texture together
That's a
for
great
that
point.
added effect. Yeah, on the
That's,
packaging. Yeah.
and for those of us who don't know, I know because I've had the pleasure of visiting you, Mike, in person. What exactly is your neck of the woods so that everybody can get where you're coming from?
Oh, okay. Well, we operate in the ASEAN region, so Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. Where else? Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
One of the biggest packaging printers there use the Evo 75. Yeah.
very
So
cool.
so that's the area we cover.
Mike is definitely one of the top jet varnish Jedis, I would say, in the world. So, along with Marco, it's really a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, and he remind me of something that I did also for the customer.
Yeah,
Not only the pattern that you put, texture pattern, whatever we call it, you can also go to the satin effect with let's say 10% of the varnish on a small machine on 21 micron,
right.
or on a big one machines, let's say 3DL. I did it on a 5 or 2% of the varnish. You get that uh, matte, not completely matte, but a satin effect. You totally can block that glossiness of the foil and everything, and it's
Yeah.
still metallic, but it's satin effect.
So Marco, just so you know, and we talked about this, I think, in the one of our sales meetups, is that typically luxury companies don't like the glossiness of the foil. They're typically going to either buy a matte foil or want some kind of a matte effect. That seems to be the trend right now. Um, Cannabis, the opposite. They want super, 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 super glossy stuff. One of the things that I have heard Matt do is run his jobs that he's done on his jet varnish, and I don't know if you've done this, Ken, through like an aqueous or UV flood coater afterwards, and basically be able to put maybe a soft touch aqueous or a soft touch UV on top of that foil to kind of secure it. I don't know if that's something that you've ever tried or if you've ever done.
We've experimented with just about every coating you can do. The problem with gloss UV coating is that they add things to that coating to knock down gloss, right? It's all gloss when it starts. So they start adding fillers and powders and things like that to it.
Play.
And
Yeah.
I end up having problems with it actually curing on the foil. And I find that the foil isn't a great printed surface. It tends to run off the foil. If you can get a good aqueous soft touch, they're hard to find.
Right.
They're also very difficult to apply. But then you're talking about putting it through another offset press, right? Not too many people are running their UV coaters with aqueous as well. And Bruno was doing that. But that really gets into some serious cost. But if you have to do it, you have to do it. I do find that matte foils, I have great luck with matte foils.
Yeah, me
When it
too.
comes to detail and small letters and the things we tell people to stay away from, matte foil really, I've had a lot of success with it. So I guess if you could matte foil it and then maybe gloss varnish over the top for protection, it'll still have a matte look. It might be a little more shiny than you want. I mean, if you really want dull, then you need
Yeah.
that soft touch laminate because that stuff is killer. Not
Yeah.
only is it goes over the varnish stuff well, it's a beautiful printing surface. I mean, the jet varnish just loves it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but not too thin on a soft touch. Don't go too thin because you will have holes because of the spreading of the varnish. You cannot spread it.
Oh, you have to go
So
a higher BCN.
yeah, from 20, 25 microns up. The customer in Slovakia, he asked us for 17 on Evo for 14 microns. So the flat varnish on a soft touch, and then I explained him you cannot because you need first to fill up fill up that soft touch
Yeah.
pyramids when you go to the micro world of the crosscut. When you fill it up, then you can have the nice flat surface. So it was in the end 20 something varnish as a lower level for the varnishing of soft touch. But for the details, as Ken said, for the details, it's for the thin lines and everything, it's excellent. It's everywhere. Soft touch is really nice to work if you have the
Marco, do the
details.
machines with the Corona units, are they able to help pre-treat a little bit? Does that help with any of that on the soft touch?
Maybe a little, but when you do the cross section of the soft touch, and when we go to the micro world of that cross section, basically you have the pyramids, that reflects the light, so we have soft touch effect. You need to feel them. You need to feel them to get the nice even surface of the varnish. Until you feel them, you will have those points of the, let's say, pyramids out, and you will not have the smooth surface. You know what? You understand what I'm talking about.
Do
So
and,
like,
go ahead.
let's say, like some rough, basically soft touch is a rough lamination, and to get the nice, especially on the thin layers, to get the nice visual effect, you need to feel that roughness. You need to fill it with varnish.
Right.
And Marco brings up a great point. As operators, it's really crucial to test. I mean, if anybody offers you samples, take them. I mean, I remember having great luck with like Lux laminates, but they're always changing them. They're always making them better. They're making them more adhesive to stick to toner better. So that makes them more advantageous for packaging. I think as operators, if anybody's willing to give you a sample, or they're willing to take some sheets from you and laminate them and send them back to you, don't pass up that opportunity, because you might find one of your biggest headaches with a particular product completely goes away with another one. They are not all the same. It is not one shoe fits everybody. So always experiment with this stuff. And another thing I just thought of is those, you tend to print on 10, 12, 14, 16 point board stocks when you're doing a lot of packaging, or label stocks, but don't make the mistake of getting a C2S sheet for your packaging.
Oh, that's smart.
Sometimes you'll get to your converting machine and you find out that they added so much coating to make that sheet smooth and make that board smooth. And that's a lot of the imports. They do that. It gets so glossy that when I go to glue it, the boxes start popping apart when you get them into a box and you apply a little heat to the after product. So make sure it's C1S, and also test your C1Ss, because sometimes they want to put a little bit of a printing on the inside of the lid, like, welcome to our product. Well, a lot of the printing technologies, indigos especially, some of those uncoated sides are so acidic that, the HP inks and the hybrid UVs, they don't stick to it very well. You'll end up with problems with that. And you're going to put that sheet through your jet varnish sometimes 3 times. I have done it where they printed on a C1S. We've put it through for foil, for varnish, for foil, and then again for varnish. And by the time we got done, the print was missing on the back because it actually crumbled off the sheet. Wow. So they're not all the same, especially the imports. They tend to throw so much filler into their board stocks that they don't end up making it a very good burning surface on the inside. So test.
I've seen also another problem with low quality C2S, where exactly what you're saying, the quality of the coating is not necessarily top notch. If the production floor is too hot, and you have a big pile, that C2S coating ends up kind of melting in the pile and actually sticking to the varnish that's kind of sitting on top of it. So one of the great things that we figured out is if we were going to do big piles of high volume, is we really want to run C1S, because we didn't want that coated side kind of facing the varnish that's on the sheet that's underneath of it, and then kind of fusing together. So that was, I think, that was something that we ran into and that we figured out. I think it might have been in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. The other thing too, as an operator, you really want to save your own butt.
Right.
you're going to find, why are these jobs that I'm running on 18 but 16 point, or I guess technically you're not supposed to run 18 point. There's some tricks, but we won't get into that today.
Not
You're
on
gonna,
camera.
if you have a pile feeder on your Curio Shine or your Jet Varnish, you're only able to fit in about 4 inches of stock. You're going to end up having to reload 4,000 sheet. You're only going to get 200 or 300 sheets in your pile feeder.
Right.
You're going to have to go down and go up and go down and go up and go down, and you're going to have these reloads.
Right.
You know, when if you let that stop, you let that pile stop, and you have to restart the Jet Varnish, you're going to have to, you know, the startup time, right? You push it, the belts go, the heaters warm up, the fans run, the scanners reset. Do yourself a favor. Be ready with your next 2-inch stack. As soon as the sheet is taken, drop that pile, get that 200 or 300 sheets in. There'll be a little bit of a delay. Both presses will allow you, I think, a 30-second delay, and
Right.
get it back up in there and get it going. Because the more that Jet Varnish runs, the happier those heads are. And every time you stop, you're going to end up causing yourself a high potential for defects.
Yeah.
You have a little workaround for that.
Yeah, let's hear it.
As an operator, you can change the feeding time. What
The
it's
sheet
called,
delay? The sheet delay?
Yeah. Basically, what you set in there, after that time, you have around, on a small machines, around, also on big ones, around 1.5 to 2 minutes. And then he goes out of paper. But if you put there, let's say 240 seconds, I tested with 120 20 seconds. So 2 minutes plus 2 minutes, basically, or minute and a half gives you 3.5 minutes for that. So basically you can try it with 300 seconds. It's 5 minutes. Maybe he will turning. I didn't test it with so long, but you can postpone that waiting time. Yeah, this is thing that I always taught my operators when I do the training, even with standard production.
Yeah.
Put it complete production, let's say 1,000 sheets, and then put it on a 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Look for sheet, everything is okay, lower it down to 1 second and print.
Right.
Okay, I need to move it 2 pixels right or left. I move it, print another one, waiting for 45 seconds. Then, oh, it's okay. Then I can print. Rather than print one and print one and print one and print one. And then that time of stopping the machine, especially on a small one, because the head goes always up and down. On the big machines, it stays down for 15 seconds.
Right.
So the restart is much faster.
You use the sheet delay as like a leverage.
Yes. And then if you need to stop because of big movement or something else to edit in an editor, then you will stop. But from the start, you put the whole production inside and print. If the first sheet is okay, then lower it to 1 second and print, or 0 second, whatever it is.
Yeah, or like me, I love a race, right? And I think most operators do. And the manager in me is, screw that. Get that pile down, be ready. If you get it in there, you're racing the machine. You're lucky you're almost the exact same gap on the next sheet. So but that's great, Marco. I mean, I didn't know that was fine-tunable, and that could definitely help
because
the stress level.
Even if you put 200 seconds, let's say, imaginary 200 seconds delay, and you put your pile in, you don't need to wait for 200 seconds, because when you go down and up with a pile, it will reset.
That's awesome.
Mike, is this something that you do at all? Is this new info for you, or have you played with this stuff in the past?
Adjusting the time is new for me, but what I do is that just like Ken, I have my piles already lined up, and in fact, one pile is also on the feeder. Well, so
Right.
one pile is already being fed, another on the feeder, and then the rest are on the table.
Right.
And anyway, it's especially for the Curio Shine. The Curio Shine is more tolerant for missing paper, so I can take a little bit of a sweeter time in changing.
Right. So air traffic control. You got everything lined up. Very cool. Good.
Because it's easy for the thick papers. You have, as you said, Kevin, 200, maybe 300 sheets. But when you do the commercial job, when you have 150-gram paper, then the pile is really, you cannot put it completely in. You need to put it in a few times, then you need more time.
Fascinating. Very cool. Well, Ken, is there anything else, any other tips and tricks that you think, or maybe even Mike or Marco have for us to talk about when it comes to running packaging today? Oh, anything that you wanted to share? Anything else?
I think just to keep the process lean. A lean process does not have a lot of waiting time. It doesn't have a lot of waste. It doesn't have a lot of handoff time. It doesn't sit. You really want to jump on those jobs. So communicate with your press operators, find out when they're going to run it. Make sure you're not having to run, set 12 sheets of business cards before your packaging job. Get on it right away. It's going to just save you so many problems down the road. And then hand it off, right? I mean, the next person in line is your customer. That in particular with a packaging job is going to be your die cutter. I'm sure he's going to appreciate not having to wait on you and wait on your lifts. So think about that and keep it moving. The more you keep it moving, the better it's going to be for the product.
I love it. Mike, Marco, any words of wisdom from your side?
Not for now. I think Ken cover it really, really good, because he has a lot more experience, real experience, literally. But for now, and just as he said, be aware of the creasing lines and the cutting lines, and what we discussed also on the designer part, and try to design it to be maybe manageable in the classics and in the digital. Okay, the digital will give you the smaller runs, but if you can transfer the same design to the classic, then your product is good. Develop it with a how to say it, scale up thinking upfront. So
right. Very good. Thank you, Mark. How about you, Mike? Anything you wanted to share with everybody watching?
Well, a lot of our customers play with a lot of different types of foil.
Yeah.
And some foil would be okay with a lower temperature, and other foils would need a higher temperature. So as much as possible, when we do our production, we try to program the queue where the higher temperature foil is at the latter part of the production day.
Okay.
Because it's faster to heat up the foil than to cool it down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so the waiting time. So that's one of those things that it wasn't so obvious at the start, but after the production head saw the result, they liked it a lot, and are doing it that way now.
Fantastic.
One more thing, Kevin, I'm sorry. I cannot push enough for an operator the prototyping. I just want to say it one more time. Prototyping is profitable. Prototyping gets the operator in on the design process. It helps the operator avoid down the line issues because everything is properly placed. As an operator, push for prototyping. You will be amazed at how profitable it is for the company, and the bigger companies really appreciate it.
For sure. And I think we just had a conversation with someone who's doing anywhere from $800 to $1,500 per prototype. So that's something that they've printed on their Konica Minolta toner press, that they've embellished on their Curio Shine, and that they've cut with like a small drag knife cutter that they have and hand glued. So it's like, a little bit of work goes a long way when it comes to prototyping, because how much would it cost to do prototypes with an analog way, Ken, to get them?
How much is it if you have to redo a run? Think of all the process parts that go into it, right?
Right.
I mean, the best story I ever had was we passed it around the table, and 8 people in our board of directors had input on it. And by the time they got done, they picked a different color. They picked a different size. They wanted the box to open easier. They wanted different flaps. They didn't want glue on the bottom. They wanted it to be a pop together box. So, I mean, $1,000 is nothing when you're talking about saving a catastrophe at the end, and or usability, right? To improve user experience. So, go for it and be the hero. Operators, you need to push for this. And then your design, right? You're the one that you suggest. You're the hero, right? It not only is better for you, but it might be better for the customer.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, thank you very much to our awesome host, Ken Huizenga, for hosting today's Operator Meetup, where we talked about a lot of different things. This has been I've learned a lot of things during this. I always learn a lot of things during these sessions. We will have this available for the Jet Force on the Jet Force website. If you have any questions, there is the forum that's available to you. We have a group of experts standing by to help help you answer any questions that you might have on production related stuff, sales related stuff, estimation related stuff, really anything regarding your jet varnish. We are all on standby to help you be more successful. So thank you again for being part of our community. Thank you to our host and to our panelists, Marco and Mike. And thanks to you, Eric, for showing up, buddy, and getting your learn on. But I love having you on these things. So we will see you guys next month, where we're going to be talking more about commercial applications. And in the meantime, thanks again for coming, everybody.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.